If 6 out of 10 people sitting in a waiting room with you were secretly terrified about the exact same thing, would you still feel like you're the only one dealing with it? Because right now, that's basically what's happening across Australia. Somewhere tonight, there's a 55-year-old lying awake, phone in hand, opening their super app for the third time that day. Not because the balance changed, just because checking it again somehow feels like doing something about the fear. They close the app. They stare at the ceiling. They think, maybe I'm the only one who feels this behind. Maybe everyone else has this figured out. They're not the only one, not even close. New research released just this year found that 61% of Australians aged 50 to 59, that's the decade right before retirement, are genuinely worried about whether they'll have enough to live comfortably. That's not a small, anxious minority hiding in the corner. That is the majority of people standing at the edge of retirement, quietly unsure if the ground beneath them is solid. Today on RetireScope AU, we're going to unpack exactly where this fear is coming from, whether it's actually justified, and most importantly, what you can do about it starting right now, whether you're one of the 61% or watching this because you're worried you're about to be. Let's start with the data, because I think it's important you understand this isn't a vague feeling. This is measurable, and it's happening at scale. The research came from Colonial First State, one of Australia's largest wealth managers, published in late May 2026. Alongside that 61% figure, they found that 37% of people said they're specifically afraid of outliving their superannuation, which is a very particular kind of fear. It's not just, will I struggle a bit, it's, will the money actually run out while I'm still here? Half of the people surveyed said they were worried about unexpected health or aged care costs. Not planned costs, the ones you can't see coming. And only 51% of Australians overall said they feel prepared for retirement. That means almost half the country is heading toward one of the biggest financial transitions of their life without feeling ready for it. There's one more number in this research that I think explains a lot. Australians say they want to retire at 62. But when you ask them what they actually expect, realistically, the answer comes back at 66. That's a 4-year gap between the retirement people are hoping for and the retirement they think they're actually going to get. 4 years of working longer than planned, simply because the finish line kept moving further away. So this isn't just anxiety sitting quietly in your head. This is a documented nationwide pattern. And the reason behind it is more specific than most people realize. Here's where it gets interesting and honestly a little frustrating, because I think this is where a lot of unnecessary stress comes from. The target number that everyone's chasing keeps moving. According to that same Colonial First State research, Australians now believe they need just over $1 million, specifically $1,005,951, to retire comfortably. A year earlier in the same survey, that number was $823,000. That's a jump of $183,000 in the public's perception of what's needed in a single year. Now, before you panic about that number, I want to show you something important. The official industry benchmark, the one actually built by retirement researchers rather than shaped by public sentiment and headlines, tells a different story. ASFA, that's the Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia, updated their retirement standard in February 2026 for the first time in 3 years. Their figure for a comfortable retirement is $630,000 for a single person and $730,000 for a couple, assuming you own your home outright by the time you retire. That's a huge gap. People think they need over $1 million. The actual industry benchmark says $630,000 to $730,000. So which one is right? Honestly, both numbers matter, but for different reasons. The public perception number reflects real anxiety about rising costs, and it's not baseless. We'll get into why in a moment. But the ASFA figure is the one built on actual spending data, actual life expectancy modeling, and actual interaction with the age pension. And here's the thing I keep coming back to. Most people chasing that public perception number have never actually sat down and calculated what their own number is. They're reacting to headlines instead of running their own maths. I know someone whose target number changes almost every time a new article comes out. 1 month, it's 800 grand. The next month, the headline says $1.2 million, and suddenly that's the new goal in their head, even though nothing about their actual life or spending changed. That's an exhausting way to plan for retirement, because you're never actually working towards something fixed. You're chasing a moving target shaped by other people's anxiety. And here's the part that makes this fear so exhausting for so many people. Most Australians are chasing a number that keeps shifting, without ever pinning down what their own number actually is. So let's talk about why this fear exists in the first place, because I don't think it's irrational. There are 3 very real things driving it, and understanding them properly actually helps take some of the power away from the fear itself. The first driver is cost of living pressure, specifically for people on fixed or semi-fixed incomes. According to ABS data, households whose main income source is government payments, which includes a large portion of retirees, experienced the highest annual cost increases of any household type through to December 2025. Think about what that means practically. If you're drawing $40,000 a year from your super and costs rise even a modest 3 to 4% annually, in 10 years you'd need somewhere between $54,000 and $59,000 just to maintain the exact same lifestyle. If your retirement plan doesn't build that increase in from day one, your money runs out earlier than the spreadsheet ever told you it would. The second driver is genuine uncertainty around healthcare. In the May 2026 federal budget, the government proposed removing the age-based uplift on the private health insurance rebate for older Australians. According to ABC News reporting, this change is expected to push around 44,000 older Australians to drop their private health cover entirely if it goes ahead. Now, I want to be clear here. This is a proposal. It hasn't passed into law yet, and things can change before it does. But the uncertainty itself is enough to keep people up at night, because healthcare costs in your later years are exactly the kind of unpredictable expense that can quietly derail an otherwise solid plan. The third driver is simply living longer than people expect to. Life expectancy in Australia currently sits around 85 for women and 81 for men, and those are just averages. Plenty of people live well beyond that, which means your retirement savings might genuinely need to stretch across 25, sometimes 30 years. Said out loud like that, it sounds enormous. And if you've never actually broken that number down into something manageable, it's no wonder it feels overwhelming. None of these three things are things you can personally control. You can't control inflation. You can't control a federal budget proposal. You can't control how long you're going to live. But there is one thing you absolutely can control, and it's the thing almost nobody actually does, which is knowing your actual number instead of guessing. Before we get into that, if this video is genuinely helping you make sense of what's actually going on, hit like and subscribe to RetireScope AU. We break down exactly this kind of thing every week. Real data, no scare tactics, no products to sell you, just information that actually helps you plan properly. Now, here's something that I think deserves way more attention than it's getting, because it directly pushes back against some of this fear, and most people genuinely don't know it happened. From the 1st of July 2026, the age pension asset thresholds increased through regular indexation. A single homeowner can now hold assets up to $333,000 and still receive the full pension. That's up $11,500 from where it sat before. For a couple, that threshold is now $499,000, up $17,500.
The deeming thresholds, which affect how Centrelink assesses income from your savings and investments, also lifted to $66,800 for singles and $110,600 for couples.
What this actually means in plain terms is that thousands of Australians who were previously told they didn't qualify for a pension, or only qualified for a smaller part pension, might now be eligible for more support than before. If you were assessed a year or two ago and told no, or told you'd only get a small amount, it is genuinely worth checking again, because the goalposts moved and a lot of people have no idea. Thousands of Australians who were told no by Centrelink in the past might actually qualify now, and most of them have no idea the rules changed underneath them. So let's bring this back to that 51% figure, the number of Australians who don't feel prepared for retirement. Because I think the real story behind that number isn't about how much money people have, it's about how few people have actually sat down and done the calculation properly. There's a real difference between feeling behind and actually being behind, and most people never find out which one they are because they never check. I've noticed a pattern that comes up again and again. The people who feel confident heading into retirement usually aren't the ones with the biggest balance. They're the ones who actually ran the numbers, who know exactly what their income will look like combining their super, their pension eligibility, and their expected costs. Meanwhile, people with genuinely solid balances still feel anxious, purely because they've never confirmed it in black and white. The fear lives in the not knowing, far more than it lives in the actual numbers. So let's talk about what to actually do with all of this, because I don't want to leave you sitting with just the problem. The first step is calculating your actual number, not the headline number, not the number your neighbor mentioned at a barbecue. MoneySmart, which is the free government retirement planning tool, lets you put in your super balance, your expected spending, and your likely age pension entitlement, and it gives you a real projection. It takes about 10 minutes. Whether you're a homeowner or a renter changes this number significantly, and whether you want a modest lifestyle or a more comfortable one changes it too. There is no single number that applies to everyone, there's only your number, and you won't know it until you actually run it. The second step, given everything we just covered, is checking whether you now qualify under the new July 2026 thresholds, especially if you were rejected or only partially approved for the age pension in the past. The Services Australia calculator can give you a rough estimate, and if your situation is complicated, a Financial Information Service Officer, which is a free government service, can walk you through it properly. The third step is reviewing your private health insurance now, ahead of any changes to the rebate structure. Even though the proposal from the May budget hasn't become law yet, understanding exactly what you're paying, what you're covered for, and what your options look like puts you in a stronger position regardless of what happens with that legislation. And the fourth step, honestly the one I think matters most, is talking to someone qualified instead of carrying this alone. Whether that's a licensed financial advisor or a free financial information service session through Centrelink, getting a second set of eyes on your actual situation tends to do something that worrying alone never does. It turns a vague, heavy feeling into a specific, workable plan. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. That 61% figure is real, and if you're feeling it, you are absolutely not alone. But fear that stays vague stays heavy. Fear that gets turned into an actual number, an actual plan, tends to lose most of its grip. Knowing where you stand, even if the news isn't perfect, is almost always less exhausting than not knowing at all. That's exactly why Retirescope AU exists. Not to add to the noise, not to make you more anxious, but to give you the real information early enough that you can actually do something with it. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you one of the 61%? What's the specific thing about retirement that worries you the most right now? I read every single comment, and it genuinely shapes what we cover in future videos. And if you know someone in their 50s who's quietly stressed about this but hasn't said anything to anyone, send them this video today. Sometimes just knowing you're not the only one carrying this worry makes the first step so much easier to take. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.